Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. As we head into CDL 2023, some pro teams have paid way more for their rosters than other teams have. Attach has been talking about the fact that the Minnesota Rokkr are considered to be a serious big spender of this offseason, buying out some big name players from other organizations and also paying them big salaries. But he reckons that Minnesota are nowhere near necessarily the spending of some organizations, certainly not the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Obviously great update here from the CDL on the state of the game being unplayable, but look, they've got a new hashtag or a hash flag or whatever they call it with the CDL logo, so congratulations I suppose. Quick note on the LAG, because they are building a serious coaching staff. They brought Marky B in, of course, from Toronto. They brought Mayhem in from Toronto. They've also brought Ariane in, who was part of the World Championship winning Challengers team. I suppose he was part of the coaching staff with Mohawk's team at the end of last season. So yeah, they're leveling up their coaching room again. So they're taking things to a new level, and that is the thing. LAG, they've got some serious resources over there, and we can clearly see that with the rosters that they have built over the last couple of seasons and the amount of money that they paid, even notably to like Aches back in the Modern Warfare 2019 days. He got an absolute bag from LAG despite getting benched after a couple of months and still riding out that bag, we believe, for the rest of the season. Quick note on the Major 2 in Boston, February 2nd through to the 5th, the MGM Music Hall that recently opened in Boston. So really cool stuff. This is what the venue looks like. Kind of gives me vibes of the, was it the King's Theatre or whatever it was for the New York Major as well. So yeah, kind of a similar kind of vibe and setup they've got going on there. Pretty cool stuff, to be honest. And yeah, here's the announcement video that they do there. So awesome stuff. The Boston Major, I'm sure, is going to be cool. This might be one that I try and head out to this season. So yeah, hopefully it goes well for Boston. We've seen some great cities, well, do some killer events the last couple of years, and Boston are pretty much one of the new entrants because we've got OpTic coming back, we've got Toronto coming back, we've got New York coming back, we've got, I've got, well, Raleigh and Champs is going to be wherever it is, like they usually do it in LA, right? Of course, nowadays, probably not going to be in London, and Boston's a new host, so I thought that was pretty cool stuff, and they killed it, honestly, in their first season with the branding and all that type of stuff as well. And as Method says here, we toured the venue a bit ago, truly couldn't be in a better location. Excited to see everyone in a couple of months' time. Hopefully the game will actually be playable by then. And just a note from LA Thieves, 2 type of handshakes, Kenny on the left-hand side, Octane on the right-hand side, where they kind of come together for the Hall of Fame, and that's when they did. They even did this kind of cool thing here where, Kenny had to come up and do a speech. You guys might remember a few years ago when Kenny won Rookie of the Year in World War II. He was in the Esports Awards, which I think was held in London. Kind of a similar thing going on. But yeah, pretty cool stuff for Kenny. They had like the whole 100 Thieves guys here to do like a Hall of Fame entrance thing. So yeah, congrats to all those guys. And even aBeZy's grinding the Warzone stuff, because what else is there to do right now, because the game is still unplayable, at least as of recording. Maybe Infinity Ward miraculously fixed it in a few hours after I made this video, but it still seems a little bit doubtful, to be honest. And even Vonderhaar right here, I mean, look at this guy. Imagine you ran across this guy in the street, you think he was like going to give you a side quest or something. But yeah, Miss You Goat says B to the replies, because yeah, we kind of need Vonderhaar and the boys at Trek to deliver the goods. I don't know if he's even working with Trek anymore for the upcoming game, because I think he said like a few times in the last decade that he's going to retire and this is going to be his last game, but it doesn't always work out like that, it seems. Let's talk then about some spicy power rankings we saw the other day, but also some further implications. We looked at this yesterday from Ben J. Nassim. These are his power rankings going into the season, what he's heard in scrims. This is just in tiers. It's not like ordered. Boston aren't fourth necessarily, but the tiers he believes are correct. Now, Minnesota Rokkr are a pretty interesting team. They put together a stacked roster this season. They're hoping that it's going to be very good. Afro, they brought in from London. His contract was at an end, so they didn't necessarily need to pay a buyout for Afro, but they would have needed to pay him a decent salary because Toronto wanted him as well. Toronto, I think, thought they were going to get Afro, but then Minnesota came and paid him more money. Then you've got Attach, who you'd imagine they had to pay Attach a fair bag to get him to stay, because last season on Rokkr wasn't so good. There were some theories about, okay, maybe he's going to go to LAG, get a better offer over there. So they probably had to pay Attach a decent bag to go. And then Bance and Cammy, they might not have to pay them crazy kind of figures in terms of salaries, but they would have had to pay a buyout, right? So I think that's kind of the key question here. Minnesota Rokkr arguably, like from a lot of people's eyes, have paid the most money to build the roster this season. They brought Afro in, they brought Bance in, they brought Cammy in, like a couple of those guys with buyouts, I believe, from Toronto. And therefore a big talking point is, well, if this team doesn't deliver, then, what is going to happen to, they spend all that money, and then if they don't deliver, what's the implication there? Now, Attach doesn't agree with this so much. He's gone through this list, because Ben J. Nassim said in his video, which I think is a fair point, really. Like, look, Rokkr spent a lot of money here. They've built, this team with a lot of cash, so they've got to deliver the goods. If they don't, questions will be raised as to, which coaching staff gets fired, basically, right? Because if you're making these calls and the team flops and you paid a lot of money for these players and it doesn't work out, then, heads might have to roll at some point. But Attach reckons, like, that's not the case. They don't get paid anything crazy, and they are not big spenders compared to other teams. He reckons reckons, yes, okay, Rokkr, they spend a lot of money, but it's not dissimilar to what FaZe pay for their players, what Thieves pay, what OpTic pay, what, he kind of puts Boston in a slightly different category, but New York, certainly they have a lot of money. We heard that rumored 500k contract or whatever that Hydra was going to get paid. We think that he probably hasn't got paid that much in the end, or maybe that was never going to be the case anyway, but they've got some money. Surge are kind of on the borderline of having a decent amount of money. I mean, look, they had a lot of money back in Modern Warfare 2019, there was no doubt about it. They paid an obscene amount of cash for that team with Karma, aBeZy, Slacked, Enable, and Octane, of course. They paid those guys, I don't know, like 300k a year each or something. Like, they was the most expensive team in the league, I think, at that point, and it was one of the worst. So it wasn't a good season for them, of course. Toronto, they've got some decent money as well. And then he looks at Vegas and he looks at London and Florida and is like, yeah, it's not looking so good there. And, no real surprise maybe that those teams kind of go towards the bottom of the pecking order in terms of which teams we expect to be good. But the team that joins them in Ben's rankings is Los Angeles Guerrillas. And it's attached to the reckons that, look, LAG, they have the big money. Like, compared to all the other teams here in terms of who's paying the biggest salaries, LAG are the biggest.
Last year, big money spenders. I hate when Ben says that. Everyone's a big money spender, Ben. It gets me tilted when he says that. Nah, hold on. I'm going back. I'm releasing all teams information.
A really crowded group of a squad. A little bit of a.
Listen, FaZe, big money spender. LAT, big money spender. OpTic, big money spender. Boston, pretty good money spender. New York, big money spender. Rokkr, big money spender. LAG, super big money spender. Florida, London, Seattle, pretty solid money spender. Ultra, yeah, big money spender. Vegas, come on now. You know this.
And this is an interesting statement just compared to what other people have said about Arcitys, for example, right? When Arcitys joins that team, there was questions. Did he have better offers? Is LAG really the way that he would have gone? Or was it the fact that they have obscene amount of money to spend? They're owned by Stan Kroenke, right, I believe. So, like, that guy's got a decent amount of money flowing around, and LAG certainly do flaunt it and spend it pretty widely. Now, look, I honestly think that LAG over the last couple of years should have built a better team than they have. Yes, they won Major 2 last season, but that was a crazy event win, let's be honest. And this season, they've, the team they've built this year doesn't really seem like it's capable of doing that. Now, these are the crazy deals that they've already signed. So, like, is Attach just trying to deflect away from the fact that his organization indeed has spent a lot of money and needs to deliver the goods here? Because if they don't, then there's going to be some serious questions. And he might well be right that other teams, especially FaZe, Thieves as well, I would say also, but OpTic as well, the top kind of spenders in the S tier theoretically going into the season, those teams will pay big player salaries. And maybe the salaries that is, well, getting received over on the Minnesota Rokkr aren't quite comparable to that, but maybe including some of the buyouts or whatever, maybe it's kind of a similar spends season on season. But he reckons that the super spenders are LAG. Now, we saw these unprecedented deals signed, Arcitys and Spart, to 3-year contracts with the organization. Like, these guys have a lot of money to spend, and they are not afraid of doing so. So yeah, are LAG, effectively, do these guys have the highest salaries in the league? I think you can very well argue that they probably do, especially because of what we saw from aBeZy right at the end of last season. So aBeZy, you guys remember, he was on the Los Angeles Guerrillas. They had some ups, they had some downs, and towards the end of the year, he was obviously benched from the team. They did the whole Neptune thing, and he came in, Gunless came back in, then Gunless was gone. It was an absolute mess over there, obviously, despite all the money they have to theoretically build a good team, and I'm still not sure they've done that this season, to be honest. But anyway, so Neptune was in, aBeZy was out, and aBeZy got an offer from Florida, we believe. When Florida called him up and said, hey, aBeZy, we want you to come in, and we thought he was going to join. He then declined that offer, which forced them into the 2-reel pickup, right? They didn't want 2-reel, I think, but aBeZy was going to be the case. They thought they could get aBeZy. aBeZy declined the offer and stayed on LAG, and we kind of believe he gave some reasonings for it. It seems to me like, reading between the lines, it was kind of a money thing, right? Because if he joins Florida, he probably would have got paid significantly less to sit on the Florida starting roster than he would to just sit on the bench of LAG and just collect his paycheck as a substitute, because I'm sure he was getting paid a lot of money over there. And you can't exactly blame him, right? So maybe that's just one indication that indeed LAG do have the big bucks. They're the team that's paying the serious salaries. And, maybe also implying that that's why Arcitys chose this team over others, because he's got the big money. You can't exactly blame him for signing a massive 3-year deal with an organization that's got some serious capital behind it. But look, at the same time, what are they going to achieve with all this cash? Because as we see from Ben's power rankings, as was implied there by the teams towards the top of this list, are the teams that pay their players big money because they're big name players. Maybe the only team team that's considered to be a contender that doesn't do that is possibly Boston, that they have some decent money. I don't think they're paying crazy salaries, but LAG should be off their spending a Sunday regular team. They should be a team that's competing day in, day out with their Los Angeles counterparts, but they've never done that over the last few seasons, and it doesn't seem likely to me this team's going to do it either. So I think really, like, instead of the questions being raised at Minnesota Rokkr spending if they don't do so well, I think the questions really need to be raised about the Los Angeles Guerrillas, to be perfectly honest, but it's not like that's a new story necessarily. And even, Scump right here, because look, we know that Scump's getting paid some serious cash on OpTic, don't exactly know what his deal is, how much money he's getting paid, what his salary is, what part of that is based on content and stuff like this as well. But I think Hitachi is right to a certain degree to say, look, hey, it's not just me that's getting paid a lot of cash. These other organizations are also doing the same thing. Just before we close out, I did want to share a brief snippet of this actually that came out from the OpTic or the Courage and Nadeshot show the other day when they were talking to It's Timmy. And Nadeshot was actually talking about his days on OpTic and why he decided to step away, why it was like super difficult for him, because pretty much his opinion was, understandably, and this continues to the present day about the scapegoating, that Nadeshot was really suffering from, the fan backlash. Like, he won 3 out of like the first 4 events he played or something on that OpTic dynasty before like Karma came into the team when he'd stepped away after the Advanced Warfare World Championship. And he found it really taxing that whenever they lost or did badly, like, he was considered to be the absolute scapegoat, despite the fact that there wasn't really much more he could do on the team, because look, at the end of the day, you got Scump, Formal and Crim, like prime Scump, Formal and Crew on your team. Like, there's not many more kills to get on the map, but he was getting all the backlash whenever they lost, and therefore like he just couldn't really handle it. And we see that to this day. When Karma came in, when they lost, he was the scapegoat, and now it's iLLeY really who's the scapegoat as well in the modern day. And you can totally understand Nadeshot's decision.
So I quit because of many different reasons. I'll just run down them. One, the team that I was on with Formal, Crim6, and Scump, we won 3 majors in a row before we lost champs. And at that time, the fact that we lost champs, it felt like the first 3 championships we won together didn't matter. Like, you didn't win the big one, so nobody's going to remember the first 3, and that history has proven that. Like, people talk about the OpTic dynasty with Karma on the team, and I guess, selfishly, it kind of makes me upset. I don't think about it, but when people bring it up, I'm like, well, what about the first 3 majors of the goddamn year that we won? Like, what happened to that? But at that point, I was on a team that was so talented, there was nowhere else for me to go. Like, when you have Scump, Formal, and Crim6 on the team, their expectation at that point, since we won 3 tournaments, we should be winning every tournament that we play in. And I was, from a stats perspective, the weakest on the team. And I was always a scapegoat. There were probably moments where I could have lost us a map because I didn't put up enough kills in hardpoint. But the problem was everybody in the community blamed me. And so when you have all the attention and you are the most popular team, there's good and bad that come with that. And I was just so tired of people, if we lost a map, it was just Nadeshot. Yeah, I grew pretty thick skin over time. I had to deal with a lot through my competitive career, but that one was just kind of like the last straw. There was nowhere for me to go. Like, I couldn't stay on that team. They weren't pushing me out. I'm sure Crim6 wanted to, but I left on my own terms, and I left myself. The other part of it was, too, is that we weren't making any money back in the day. Like, we didn't have salaries on OpTic. There were a couple sponsorships that Hector brought to us. It's kind of hard for me to remember, but we did not have a salary. And the only money I was making was from YouTube and Twitch, and I'm a couple years removed from dropping out of community college. I'm like, okay, well, I've got all these people that love to watch me play. I got a new Call of Duty comes out every single year. Let me go try to make a living so that I don't ever have to worry about getting a job when my competitive career is all said and done. So that was the second reason. And the third reason was I was just tired of the schedule.
And just to finish up with this as well, I thought was really cool looking at some old school Call of Duty stuff. Sweatban and 88-0. There were some legendary videos that Scump did back in Black Ops 2. The other one was, I think it was KSG Decimation. I think that's maybe something else in the title. That is like nearing 7 million. But yeah, this video hit 10 million views today, which is just so crazy to think about. That I don't know like how many views this has got per hour or like per day over the last couple of years. But it's crazy to think that, what a legendary video. People are still watching this to this day. Because I'm sure people still want the nostalgia and actually want the enjoyment of watching a classic Call of Duty live comm that Scump delivered here with Sweatban and 88-0. So I guess I'll leave the link down below. You guys have probably seen it so many times, but if you guys want to watch it now, then I suppose feel free. But very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.